Things will be awful. Things will be hard. Things will be difficult. And that's a given. In chapter 24 of Matthew, in verse 12, Jesus says, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. What does it mean, and how do you stand firm to the end? Well, you can make a lot out of this, okay? To stand firm means you are in resistance to the pressure and the flow of life around you. And because the pressure and the flow of life around you would lead you to believe that your trusting in God and your love for Him, okay, but I got other fish to fry here. I mean, bigger fish. Okay. What some people believe to stand firm means you just keep on, grit your teeth, and you keep moving. You trust and obey. And okay, that's involved, but the context gives us some important stuff here, I think. The love of many will grow cold because of the wickedness. The love, okay, that was the point, not the wickedness, but the love. And then he says, but she who stands firm to the end will be saved. Okay, I think it's standing firm in our love for God. I think there's a direct line from this back to what Jesus said was the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. And then in John's gospel, that last night of Jesus' life, when he spoke to his disciples, he said, I'm giving you a new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. See, that obeying is not the point. It's a secondary outcome. The point is love. And love will bring about obedience and behaviors. Jesus says, the one who stands firm, and I'm going to make the connection for me, you decide if it's right for you, that when I stand firm in my love, I don't give up my love. When it seems like, looks like, feels like there's no reason to keep loving, I will keep loving to the end, loving God and loving one another as Jesus has loved me. That's a big task. Simple to state, sometimes difficult to do anything with. Okay. In verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. In Jesus' day, the globe was the same size as our day. The world was much smaller. The known world was much, much smaller. But the point Jesus was making is that all people groups, when that term, the nations, that is less a political term and less a geographic term and more an anthropological term meaning people groups. The testimony to all people groups. The kingdom will be preached. What's the message of the kingdom? There's a whole bunch of things you could say about that. But the kingdom is God's rule in the hearts of men and women and boys and girls. That's the kingdom of God. And the one word, I'll come back to it again because it's the point. The one word that most describes this kingdom is it is a kingdom of love. Not the hippy-dippy, make love, not war. Okay, no, this is the roll up your sleeves. You're going to get dirt under your fingernails. This is going to be hard work, love. Doing for the other person what they really need. And for us in our faith, it starts with me receiving and responding to God's love for me. That's the only way I'm going to be able to love sometimes unlovable people around me. And honestly, that's the only way I'm going to be able to love me. I'm quite unlovable quite often. Okay. The message is love. It's not trite, because these are the words of Jesus. But the message is pretty simple. He spoke the message to Nicodemus, who came to him at night, and Jesus had a discourse about being born again. And within that discourse in John, my brain's not clicking here today, 3, Jesus says, God loved the world so much that he sent his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. The message of the kingdom is God loved the world so much, you so much, that he sent Jesus so you could have life. His love brings life. This message, the gospel, that is the good news. Is there any news as good as that? No. There's some things that would be temporarily very good. Ooh, you just got raised by 40% at your job. Ooh, that's good news, but that's not the good news. Okay. The gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations. Does that mean every man, woman, boy, and girl will hear the message? Well, I'm not going to carry it that far. But I will say all the people groups will hear the message. Now, in our world, one of the complications of this is there are so many people groups, cultures and subcultures, and many of them don't even have a written language. When I was in high school, one of the guys older than me, it's kind of like, when I grow up, I want to be like John. His name is John Pryor. He and his brother, David, and their families went to Papua New Guinea with pioneer Bible translators. They spent their entire adult life living in Papua New Guinea with a tribe that had no written language. They first had to learn the language, then they had to create a written language, then they had to teach the people this written language, and then they translated the New Testament in that language. This took their entire adult lives. And this will have to happen in dozens of places around the globe. John and his brother David did this, I can say, well, mostly without the assistance of a computer. And then, of course, toward the end of their mission, they had computers and laptops and such, but there was no such thing as AI. This was hard work, consuming work. That is duplicated many times over around the globe. A couple of things that make this prophecy seem less impossible than probably it felt to the disciples when Jesus spoke it. One is our communications. Today, there are places still that have no access to electronic communications. But the number of those places is shrinking by the day. I've been to quite a few third world countries, and I can tell you, in the third world countries, mobile phones are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And now, these days, if you've got a mobile phone, you can have access to the internet. And the internet is a potentially horrible thing, but also a potentially amazingly good thing. It is entirely possible that, first of all, the good news can be written, translated and written, and then dispersed among all the people groups on our planet. That is possible today through the use of the prudent use of technology. And secondly, it in my opinion, this does not pin a date of Jesus' return, but in my opinion, in the next less than 20 years, the exponential growth of technology, especially communications and computer technology, will make it possible for literally all the people groups on the planet to be able to access the gospel. I don't know. Please don't interpret that as me saying, well, Jesus will be back in less than 30 years. I don't know. But I can say, at the current rate, in terms of technology, we're not that far away from everyone on the planet, every people group on the planet, having access to the good news, the gospel that Jesus talked about in verse 14 of Matthew chapter 23. That's enough for today. I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.